right, everybody. Welcome back. Another week, another show. We've got some fun things to talk about today. Some cool updates we kind of teased yesterday on the Instagram. If you were listening, I think we just probably want to kick it off right there with that conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's a little bit of some news dropping, but it's also a chance for us to talk about a little bit of the reasons why we decided to do what we're doing, and the to just jump right into it. We've really kind of launched our first partnership as a show, which is cool. It's been something that we've talked about doing with companies that we enjoy, and you mentioned it yesterday on the Instagram post that you did that kind of teased it. Like, it really is more than just we're looking for people who want to sponsor the show, right? It's usually you're going to be one of our friends or an extended network of our friend groups that owns companies, because those are the people whose stuff we use.
Right.
Like, that's kind of the whole point, is it's got to be a product that we use, that we enjoy, that we're connected to, not only the product, but like the people, through the relationships that we've built. And so the one that we've got going now is with Born Primitive Outdoors, which just officially really launched last year, like about a year ago exactly, actually. And they were awesome in developing a relationship with you over the course of last year, and you got to try a lot of their stuff out last year. I had Bear on my podcast last fall, right about the time that they launched, and he sent me out one of the jackets, which is awesome. I wore it all last season on all my hunts last year, and after talking so much, just kind of seemed like it was a really good fit, because we've come to know those guys really well, and we really enjoy the stuff that they make. I mean, Aaron Snyder is obviously integral part of helping develop a lot of that stuff. And so us being so, fans to a degree, but just like really respectful of him and what he does for the hunting community and all the things that he does just for the outdoors community in general. It really, for me anyways, they've always kind of seemed like a really good fit for what we're trying to do, because Born Primitive also obviously is I guess I can't say obviously if you don't know who they are, but they're a fitness apparel company first.
Yep.
And Bear used to be a CrossFit Games athlete. Like, he came from a lot of that stuff. He came from military, and a lot of their guys are all veterans on the upper, managerial levels and stuff. But it started as a fitness company. And so to blend that with the outdoors, I mean, that's like pretty much exactly what we're trying to do with the show and the stuff that we put out as well. And so it seemed like a really good fit. And like I said, we've both tried their products for the last year and loved them. Like, we put them through the ringer, the stuff that we had. And again, it was just one of these things that made sense for us to work something out with them. And I'll let you kind of elaborate a little bit, because what we really wanted to make known is that it is something that we're working together with these guys on this stuff. It's not just, hey, here's some gear, talk about it if you want, mention it on a 30-second ad spot on the pod, right? Like, there's a little more to it than that.
Yeah. Well, the cool part about this is, kind of the bloodlines of this relationship. Just to give a background from my perspective, like you said, you had Bear on your show, and Bear is kind of the founder of the whole operation of Born Primitive. And for me, my introduction to Born Primitive was through Aaron Snyder and through Kafaru. And the way that I was introduced to Kafaru was through Big Chino. I was on an elk hunt out there, packing my elk out, actually. And the first time that I'd packed an elk out, I was using another pack. It failed on me. And, in the middle of that exchange, in the middle of a pack failing, having meat on the side of the mountain, having cactus in my arm, a pissed off mentality, and just wanting to get back to the truck, I was given a Kafaru pack, and that's what all the guys out at Big Chino run. So I put the thing on, immediately felt different than the last pack, and just had a really good experience with that. Ordered one for the next hunt, killed my own elk the next year, and was packing that out. And through that process was just thanking Aaron for making such a good bag, and was talking about how hard Arizona is on equipment. And he was like, "Oh man, I know." Like, that led into the conversation about, right, well, this thing's coming from Born Primitive Outdoor. We got some stuff coming. I'm helping with that. And not to say like we're best friends and we talk all the time. This was just through a series of him helping me with my recurve.
And you did Aaron's pod as well, right?
Yeah, I did the Kafaru cast.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and that was really the genesis of a lot of things. That was the genesis of me shooting a recurve. Aaron off air somewhat more than challenged me to pick it up and kind of push with it. He said you just have seemingly the right kind of mentality for it. So I took that as a personal challenge. Like I've said before, if Michael Jordan handed you a basketball and was like, I think you got a chance to make it big, like you're probably going to see something in yourself that you don't see already. So
Yeah.
that was big. And then whenever he got the line kind of sorted out and designed out, he asked me to try some of the gear. I did. There were some early like threading issues, and then they got that adapted really, really quickly. I don't think it impacted too many of the orders of beyond the first few. Like it was just a small number. But then they got that sorted out. I wore the gear all year long last year. Really, really comfortable. Really, really versatile and like flexible. You can
Yeah.
modify the layering system. It just works really, really well. It's
And you
it's
literally wear the pants like every day still too, just in around.
Yeah,
Not even just up in the
I'll be
mountains.
completely honest. I've got three pairs of pants that I wear typically, and that is I have a couple pairs of the Carhartt, just kind of like straight leg, cell phone pocket on the side kind of pant.
Yep.
The Frontier light and heavyweight, and then there's a pair of off the grid pants that I still wear that are pretty awesome. So that's really kind of my rotation of pants. But these are just probably the standout because they're so versatile. They've got so many well thought out pockets, and not to go too deep into the product line without finishing this story, but
Sure.
you know, got the products, tried them all, really really liked them all, was given the opportunity to give feedback, good, bad, in between, and to actually find out yesterday that some of those things have been implemented, some of those changes have been taken to heart because
That's
you
cool.
know that's part of what any company has to do is constantly evaluate and improve. So yesterday I was introduced to a guy named Kurt Gamanchi. He was connected to me through Mike Hearn, who is also a friend of Aaron Snyder. And when I was talking to Kurt yesterday, we were just kind of catching him up to speed. He's new on the job.
Yep.
Well, he's a veteran and former Navy SEAL, and comes into the fold kind of in that transitional job stage. Sets up, he's got a new position here, and we start talking. And I was just very, very straightforward with what I wanted to do. I wanted to further my relationship with Born Primitive Outdoor. I wanted to help him in any way that I could. And he was like, well, what do you need as far as gear? And I just made some very small suggestions about the podcast, and like maybe we can do some kind of promotion there where we give our listeners an
Yeah.
affiliate link where you can save
Yep.
some money on some really good gear. I just want to outfit myself, make sure that you're outfitted, and that's the main thing for the podcast here is just we're not doing this to make sure that we have the gear just selfishly for ourselves to tell you how great
Right.
it is. The
Right.
partnership aspect of this is that we're going to wear the gear, we're going to test the gear, we're going to find the good about it, find the bad about it, talk to Kurt, talk to people within. And I don't know the weight of our suggestion on those things,
Yeah.
but they will definitely be given weight as far as they trust us enough to send us the gear to test it. They trust us enough to put their name behind the podcast. And
Yep.
there's just so many. There's really avenues as things are successful and as things do well, the doors just keep opening within that range. So not necessarily for more partnerships, but within the Born Primitive Outdoor spectrum of things that we can do, things that we can offer. So it just seemed like from a very foundational standpoint, at the very very basic level of conversation, and two men talking on the phone that don't know each other but have vetted one another by the peripheral community around each of us. Um, it was
Right.
just a simple, like I already knew that I was inclined to think that that would be a good idea. We'd actually talked about that.
Yep.
And just to have that conversation and to have it flow so smoothly, it made perfect sense to continue forward and do something a little bit deeper. And then, like we talked about in January after hunting season is over, we all sit down, we talk about likes, dislikes, and then from a personal relationship, we talk about that. From a professional relationship, we talk about that. And I
Uh-huh.
just think that rather than trying to have everything right now, we just agreed to take this as a step by step process because they're growing. we're growing, and the goal is that the partnership, we can make them better, they can definitely make us better. So
Yep.
that's the ins and outs of it, more or less. Always want to try to be transparent about it. They The product is the exchange, the information and the feedback is the exchange. So that makes me feel really good about it, because I don't like getting for nothing. I like to give when I get, and kind of putting my ass on the line wearing their gear in some different conditions is, that's a
Yep.
valuable resource for them, and yourself too. So looking
Yeah.
forward to that. And again, if anybody's listening to this that feels like they might qualify for that position of, hey, you're a friend of ours, we use your product, we talked about it, definitely reach out. Like,
Yeah.
don't
For
feel
sure.
embarrassed about that. Don't feel like we're looking for that necessarily. But when the right options present themselves,
Yeah.
it's just a good thing when everybody's on the same page and able to talk about it freely. So if you got an idea, definitely just pitch it our way, even if it's for
For
an
sure.
episode or just a mention on the story. Like, the focus of mine has always been to highlight my friends, to highlight the
Yes.
people that are doing cool stuff that I don't think enough people know about, that I can maybe put a flashlight's worth of emphasis on and help them be seen by somebody else that'll see it maybe the same way I did. So,
Right.
it doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't have to be anything much at all, but I want to help my friends. I want to help people I care about. So, yeah, use this
Well,
as a resource.
and what's cool is a couple of things as far as all this concerned. One, to just go right off of that, where with this project, with the show, with all the stuff that we're doing, like, it's not either of our main thing that we do
Right.
for like revenue or for income or anything like that for either of us. So I think
So
that
far,
is
since
so
we've been
far
doing this podcast, the revenue has been zero.
exactly
So
$0.
exactly $0.
Maybe even cost me a few dollars somewhere. I'm
It's
not sure,
definitely
but
cost me something.
right.
Pieces of my soul.
But having that situation is actually nice for us in these scenarios where we're working with companies that like we want to build relationships with, because it's not like if both of us stop doing what we were normally doing, quit both of our jobs, and like we're all going all in on peace, love, and meat, there would be some probably different types of decisions made, because now we're both like, okay, this has to generate something for us.
Yeah.
But that isn't the case with what we're doing. And so that gives us a little bit more opportunity, a little bit more leeway to kind of do things in a different way that is probably different than how a lot of other podcasts approach a lot of these partnerships with other companies, which is cool.
Yeah, well, that was our goal from pretty much the rip. It was
Yep.
we'd actually talked about that. Like, our goal is not to make a lot of money from this, and that sounds kind of silly in a day and age where time is money and you're putting effort into something. That is not my goal. My number one goal with this has always been to educate, to help educate other people, as far as in like other people that can educate you on a particular topic or subject, to highlight people that are doing really cool things, to erase the idea that you can't write in a journal, to erase the idea that you don't know how to train, like, to
Yep.
really just remove barriers and help people. Now,
Yep.
that being said, I am smart enough to know that if that is done well and done properly and people appreciate, there's a reciprocation process that occurs somewhere.
For sure.
Sometimes financially, sometimes it's a door opening. But I know that if we commit to doing good things will happen. And I don't want to confine that just to financial success. And I think for a lot of podcasts, that's what they get into. Is it starts becoming, when you start it out, you want to grow it. So it's like, all I care about is the viewers and subscribers. Then the next part is, well, how can I turn these subscribers into to monetary gain? And
Yep.
that, then it becomes a monetary issue. And I think, to your point, and not trying to pat ourselves on the backs or make ourselves martyr for something, but the idea that we don't have to generate anything from this and
Yeah.
be okay, allows us to generate cooler things, maybe in a little
Yeah.
bit haphazard way relative to the norm, but that's going to be honest. And we're going to make mistakes along the way, I'm sure of that, but every step of the way we're learning too. So I don't know, I try to keep the mind frame that I want this page to be very transparent about everything that we got going on. I want people to feel like it is a community of people trying to get better and do better. And if I am doing better in some way, even if it's a small thing like extending a discount on a product or something
Yes.
like that, it's something, it's just a way to keep the giving door going.
Yep.
So I don't
And that
know.
was one of the.
I
Oh,
feel
sorry.
good about it. And I was just going to say, I
Yeah.
feel good about it.
Yeah, me too. And one of the things I was going to say too was like I know it's the case with you, but even so with me in the last year plus, where I've been more. Uh, I've been more public about posting hunting things because for a long time I was like, dude, I'm brand new. Why do I need to post any of this stuff? Nobody's going to listen to me. But it wasn't necessarily about listening to my advice, right? It was more just about sharing the stuff that I'm learning at the same time, being new to this in adulthood, right?
Yeah.
And all the processes I've gone through and learning stuff. But I mean, I would venture to guess what 70% of the questions you get are about gear, like what
Yeah.
kind of stuff you're using, like why do you like it, whether it's bows, whether it's arrow setup, whether it's your clothes, your shoes, like whatever. I get a ton of those too. And
Yep.
so for us to have a situation where it's like, hey, we actually went out with the purpose of finding out if this was going to be legit stuff and testing it and seeing what we liked
Hmm.
about it, and we like it. And so now, as a thank you for listening and being a part of all the stuff that we've been doing, like now here's a little something back for you guys to save some on this stuff. And like
Yeah.
that was really a big part of why I wanted to do something like this too, because I know that I get so many of those questions, and
Hmm.
especially there's other guys that are like me that are coming into hunting as an adult with like zero knowledge about this stuff.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're even starting is amazing, and I'm so pumped if like we played even a remotely small part in that, right?
Yeah.
But to be able to offer some insight, be like, look, this is what we like, this is why we like it, and you've been supportive, like here's whatever, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, and I
So
think too that it opens the door that anybody that anybody that listens to this or kind of goes the avenue of accessing Born Primitive through us, I would 100% encourage your feedback to us. And
yeah.
that can be just another channel that's a benefit. I mean, I think the more people that are using a product, the more people that are giving honest feedback about a product, the
Yep.
better the product can become. And that is the commitment that I heard from Kurt yesterday. I can't and I won't dispel all of his plans, but I can tell you, as a person who knows business and understands the process of business, if you're not planning, you're not progressing.
Yep.
So for him to come into a new situation, he's very much coming from a battlefield mindset. I think it's like we need to know the reasons why, and we need to understand how we're going to do our why. And it just seems like to me, he has a very, very clear vision for someone who's only been on the job just a few weeks and really a few months in that transition period with the Navy. Um, it seems like to me he has a firm grasp on who they are, what they've been, and where they're going, and the iterations to come. As someone who is a kind of a gearhead, gear junkie, kind of always loves to tinker, that's his brain set around these pants, these shirts. Like, what zipper can we change to make quieter?
Yeah.
What fabric can we use that's more durable? So he's asking all these questions as they go, putting the stamp of what we're selling you right now is great. What is coming is definitely going to be a better iteration of that. So
Yep.
you can feel confident. I mean, it's just like a bino harness situation I'm in right now from T and
Yeah.
K. I bought a Gen 2 bino harness,
Yep.
and I
Same
mean,
one I
it's
have.
really, really good. I really, really like it. Have real no really no beef with it whatsoever. But I got a couple other bino harnesses to try and test and use, and I can see things that I would change on it. Well, lo and behold, he's a smart guy. Gen 3 comes out, and
Yep.
it's adapted some of those things. Doesn't make that bino harness any less valuable, any less resourceful. It's just more like having leather seats
Yeah.
versus like cloth. There's some comfort, there's some familiarity to it. So that's going to be the same type of situation here, and I'm excited just to have a thumbprint on that in any level. Like
Yep.
I said, I told Kurt yesterday, I mean, I was grateful for the time that I got to hunt, because I did hunt so much. Was probably not probably, it was far and away, and I have to give credit to Cryptek here too, because I use their gear as well. But the layering system, the pants system, especially the base layer up top and that Frontier quarter zip, I threw a camo top on when I was in whitetail woods. I threw on the Cryptek outer shell when I was in really, really cold weather. I needed something quiet.
Yep.
Um, you know, it functioned with my other functional camo. And for the most part, I hunted in solids last year. The sage green and the
Yeah.
coyote worked really, really well for everything I was doing.
I just
So,
love solids.
well, they just look cool. I mean,
I don't, yeah. I don't
I
know.
think they,
I don't know if it's just like this romantic idea I have of being awesome without needing camo. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Oh, for
like,
sure.
like I just
Yeah.
love the idea of just rocking everything in solids and doing that. Like, I mean, whether or not it's actually, I'm sure there's obviously situations where camo is going to be a benefit. Otherwise, there wouldn't be an entire industry built around it. But
Yeah.
like, I have this, like I said, sort of romantic idea about just being solids everything, and I think it's probably because a lot of that stuff we've talked about, where it's like, guys 70, 80, 100 years ago, or like our grandfathers or great grandfathers are out just hunting in Wranglers,
Yeah.
and like whatever jacket was hanging on the hook by the door when they walked out in the morning. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I love that.
It's I think it's hard times make hard men is a good starting point for that scenario, um, but it comes into question, and this is kind of a cool point too. One, I have to credit Aaron a lot because whatever our conversation was, I know I demented it in my brain. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know it
Yeah.
wasn't him saying like, I'm giving you these pants because you're going to become this great
Right.
hunter, or I'm helping you with your bow because I believe you're going to
Right.
become this great recurve person. But that's the kind of person I am, especially with
Yeah.
people that I look up to, like my
Sure.
coaches and whatnot. If they ask me to run through a wall, I'm running through three walls.
Yep.
So when I felt like he said, test these pants, test these tops, I was going to freaking test those pants and tops. And I
Mm-hmm.
did. Arizona, they survived. And I've shredded pant after pant after pant in Arizona. And the same thing with the bow kind of deal. But for me, I never ever hope to come across as like some kind of expert because I'm just an excited
Yeah.
amateur. Like I'm still
Yes.
learning all this stuff very, very excitedly. I like things that I can build and tinker with and learn about. And it's got math involved, it's got physics involved, it's got flight involved. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just a really, really cool thing that I've become obsessed with in watching an arrow with a set of vanes on it that turns perfectly. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
why that makes me excited, but
Mm-hmm.
I know how hard it is for me to do that and
Yes.
like understanding that. So, if I overshare too much with the archery and gear stuff, it's just because I'm excited about it. But I do think that is an honest place that people are
Yeah.
finding value here too.
Yep.
It's a cool thing, man. This has been really cool.
It has been, and I want to go off a different direction here because if we can have a on-air production meeting for a couple of minutes, because this idea just like popped in my head this morning and I forgot to bring it up while we were chatting before we hit record.
Yep.
But we've been talking about doing a run of our own, you know, shirts or whatever here and there, and doing some limited run stuff. And I had this, like having just a basic Peace, Love, and Meat one with the logo or whatever. But I had
Mm.
this literal. I have to draw it because it was in my head
Yep.
earlier today. But it was just a line of stuff that would just be a +1 symbol,
Mm.
and it
Yeah.
was whether or not, and like how I flesh it out and how it looks, probably have to have some input from somebody that's a lot better designer than I am. But like having something like that, I was like, that's like literally what we put on every post ever.
Yeah.
And that's one that people really connect with, is the +1 thing, and having like a a circle logo on a hat that just is
Yeah.
like have a +1 thing or whatever would be dope. But I wanted to say that out loud before I forgot about it, and now that it's recorded, I can go back and hear it again.
Yeah, well, no, I think that's really cool, and I think the symbolism of that being the first run, that being the first run,
Yeah.
the +1 is like that is a big step because for me, I've been so many dimensions
Yeah.
with this page that I didn't want to move forward with something that I didn't start with, and that oftentimes prevented a lot of starting.
Sure.
Because Terrence and I were on the verge of doing some stuff. Uh, Greg and I had flirted with doing some stuff, and it just none of it fell apart for bad reasons. It's just COVID was crazy. Greg was crazy, like busy and trying to
Mm-hmm.
keep everything going. I was
Yep.
crazy and busy and trying to keep everything going. So
Yep.
it just and admittedly, the podcast just stopped because I
Yeah.
just didn't feel like I was contributing anything other than anger. And if it was something positive, I was lying. I just wasn't in a
Mm,
good place where I wanted to talk to a whole lot of people and make it sound like life was good. Life wasn't bad, but it
right.
was just like I didn't have a lot of good things to say about the world at large.
Yeah.
So to come back to it with from this front, from this angle, it's definitely had a positive spin, like totally positive spin. And I think now it's like, okay, we've got our footing on where we're going. So yeah, a line
Yep.
makes sense, and I definitely like that plus one. I think it I think like with a brand, like just do it,
Yeah.
almost is more synonymous with Nike than Nike.
Yep.
But it's like the plus one is the thing. That's what
Yep.
started the whole thing.
Yep.
So I think it's a good point for a Genesis line on
Hmm.
some shirts, some hats, a few stickers, um, and really maybe even put those together as like an option for a. I don't know. I don't want to make it sound too
No,
crazy.
it's good.
Like
We're doing
it's the
production meeting
Rolls,
on
like we
air.
put it in a Rolls Royce. You buy the Rolls, you get a shirt, kind of thing. It's like one of those
Right.
deals. No,
Yeah.
but there's some ways that we can make that fun.
Yeah.
Like I said, we've always got good companies around us. We've always got good people around us, and
Hmm.
uh, there's a way to make these a little sweeter than just a T-shirt or something like that, and highlight
For
people
sure.
that we like. So
For sure. So if we want to move on, we'll
yeah.
do. There was a couple other things that I wanted to touch on today. One of which was a fairly common question that I've been getting the last couple weeks, and I'm sure you probably get it too this time of year in general.
Hmm.
Um, has to do with with training as we're entering hunting season, right? And
Hmm.
I think the thing for a lot of people who take their training seriously as prep for hunting season, like the way that we even use the term season,
Yeah.
right? Like where if especially if you're coming from any kind of training or athletic background at all, it is literally like you're training for your football season. You have your
Sure.
off season, you have your preseason stuff, you have postseason stuff, but then you have like what actually matters that you're training for all year long, right?
Hmm.
And so one of the things I think a lot of people maybe are miss or have some gaps is there's no adjustment made during that time in their
Right.
training,
Right.
right? Because it's like you can't crush yourself all year long to prep for the thing where you need to be peaked and ready to go be back in the mountains for however many days or be at whatever peak shape you need to be in, and then at that same time you're doing that stuff still be crushing yourself and not have the recovery or like you're pulling away from that peak performance, right? It's
Yeah.
no different than like training for a powerlifting meet where you have your taper week, you have all these things that you're doing. It's same with a race, like you have this this methodical approach to it where it's like this is game time, right?
Hmm.
And so to sum that up, the questions I got a couple of them from some different people, but it's like how do we make those adjustments? I've just because it came from the place where like I've just been training hard and I've been either they're following our stuff for the last couple of months or they've been doing stuff prior to that where they're training hard, but now
Hmm.
it's like I don't have a in season plan,
Right.
and like I don't want to not train throughout the whole season, but how do we go about making those adjustments to where I'm still training and still at the minimum maintaining, but
Mm.
I should be in that place where like this is my peak time of the year, I need to be feeling good. Like what type of things do we need to be incorporating or subtracting from our normal training to get us and keep us ready during this whole next couple of months or however long it is for people?
Well, I think we can break that down into two parts. One is maintaining, and the other is progressing.
Yeah.
So, the cool thing about the human body is it does a really good job of maintenance once it's adapted to a level. So,
Mm.
this is where it's beneficial and this is kind of the concept of the book that I wrote, the 365 Strong book,
Yep.
which really the idea for me was the beginnings of understanding what an expert generalist was. I didn't necessarily always need to care about my peak maximum total if
Mm.
I continuously moved my 70% forward, which
Mm.
70% should be attainable under a barbell on your worst day with the flu, punched in the gut right before your set. Like
Yep.
you should be able to muster 70% for a set, no
Yep.
matter how terrible you feel. So I developed the idea if we can always focus on that 70% range and keep that number growing without
Mm.
much effort elsewhere, the maximum will by default improve. Now, you can't
Right.
get so over specified at 70% that you only progress there, but you stimulate the majority of your focus around on my worst day am I stronger? And my worst day am I stronger? That will lead to the progression of the maximum without having to kill yourself for this tiny window where you have this super compensation phase where you put on 100 pounds on your squat in
Yep.
like 10 weeks. It
Yep.
might be more like 30 or 40 pounds on your squat in 10 weeks. But what does that mean about how relatively strong you are to your capability at all times? Right.
Right.
So that was the mode that I went into thinking for that 365 strong book. And that's what I'm going to think about someone on the mountain. The version of yourself today is going to be the predecessor to 1 year from now. And what you do with those 365 days, if you lag off once the season starts, and I mean you're going to be working hard in the mountain, but you're not hunting every single day of the hunting season. So if you lag off once you kill your elk or your mule deer or your whitetail or whatever it may be, and just get fat through Thanksgiving and Christmas, like I did a couple years ago, I thought I was going to just take it off and enjoy myself. And like January 1st, I'll kick back off. Well, January 1st ended up being about April before my training really started to feel functional and progressive again.
Yep.
So don't get off the train. That's the number one rule. Like if you want to be a mountain hunter, the mountain is your mission 365 days a year, every single day, because every single day you need to be getting somewhat incrementally better towards your end mission, which is the mountain. Now, there will be peaks and valleys in your trainings to emphasize that, but maintenance level is the number one goal. What can you do day in and day out when you feel your worst? That's the number that we need to focus on, because I can promise you, in a hard mountain hunting situation, you will be hungry at times. You'll be sleep deprived. You will be sore. You will be achy. You will have every single thing that can go wrong, and you still have to be at that level. Period. Like there is no other way. So that's what you need to train around, is on your worst day, what is the maximum output that you can give? I think that comes through a balance of hypertrophy, conditioning, and isometric, as well as rucking. I think those four principles for a mountain type athlete are the most important. You need a lot of conditioning. You need a lot of rucking. The hypertrophy portion is going to come somewhat into the point where you're building the muscle, knowing that you're going to tear it down to a level when you're on these
Sure.
extreme hunts. The isometric level just comes to the third wave of strengthening muscle. You have eccentric, concentric, and isometric. Why would we be on a mountain pushing our body, or any athletic endeavor pushing our body to the extreme, asking the best of it, and negating training for one of the aspects that is muscular strength? So
Yep.
for me, those types of approach are the most important. Now, as you build those in whatever wave system you go about, when the season starts, you need to reduce the volume load. Okay. Not if you're taking 1 month or 1 week per month for 3 months or 4 months, your training really shouldn't change much at all. It should look
Right.
almost identical. Just
Right.
absolve, just resolve yourself to the idea that week of hunting on the mountain for elk, that is more impactful to your body than any training you'll do in the gym. Okay. So that is a beneficial week. Now, the following week off the mountain, I would encourage you to lighten the load a little bit, maybe make it a deload week, but definitely don't just take off. You need to resume the training and continue forward, because next month you've got to hunt. So every
Right.
time that you take off is a step backwards. And Bill Gillespie is one of the biggest believers in that. If you miss a day of training in a training cycle, you have to start over at day one.
Mm.
That is how fundamentally convinced he is that a missed day of training is that critical. I'm not necessarily trying to tell every mountain hunter that that's that way, but what
Right.
I am trying to say to you is whatever system you follow throughout the year needs to be the same system that you follow throughout your season. Maybe you take that week off whenever you're out in the hunt, but I still like to move around. I still like to do some push-ups. I still like to do some pull-ups. I don't do that thinking that it's making me better. I do that thinking it's accountability to a process that I do when I'm
Mm.
at home. So I wouldn't change a whole lot. Now, if you're a guy that is going to go on 3-4 weeks of consecutive hunts like some guys are doing now, that's where it gets a little bit tricky for me. Okay. you're going to need to simulate some sort of training. As tired as you will be, as frustrated as you will be, as hungry as you will be, you will need to carry rocks. You will need to do shoulder presses with rocks. You'll need to do push-ups, pull-ups, something 2 to 3 days a week while you're hunting. 2 to 3 days a week as an idea that this is going to be kept. Whatever I am is going to be kept. Now, the hardest part of that equation is, are you stimulating and eating enough protein to actually keep what you're saving? Or is the extra work actually compromising muscle gain or muscle retention?
Yep.
So those are all things that people need to be asking themselves. Like, I'm pretty depleted today. I went on 4 stalks for 6 hours and covered 2,000 feet, 3,000 feet of elevation in the process.
Yep.
Probably don't need to go back and lift rocks, but if you
Right.
glassed for 8 hours and
Just
maybe
sat
and
on your
maybe
butt for a
hiked for
whole
a
day.
mile and a half, yeah, go
Yep.
back. And hell, if it's light out still, why aren't you hunting? But other than that, like, maybe get up a little early the next morning, take a 10-15 minute walk, stretch, get loose, do
Yeah.
some stuff in the morning. And that's honestly, I can tell you right now, as having done both, I've lifted at night in camp at Chino after I've hunted. I've gotten up early and I've done a third of, well, not even a third, maybe a half the time that I would do in the evening. I've done 20-25 minutes in the morning, just kind of like mobilizing, stretching. I'd call it like a flow yoga, but I'm not doing traditional poses. I'm just kind of moving my body and swinging my arms. Very Troy Casey,
Yeah.
certified health nut.
Right.
But to a better point, then I start doing some push-ups and pull-ups and things like that. And by the end of 15-20 minutes, I've got a pretty good sweat. Those hikes in are better. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like, they're a little bit easier. You're already a little bit warmed up. The fog is gone. And as far as getting stronger through the season, sorry to ramble on about the maintenance, but I feel like I kind of had to lay some groundwork there.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, as far as for progression, if you're going to be someone that is on a 3 to 4 week hunt, you need to just remind yourself that that is all you're doing right now, and you are just striving to hold on to what you've got. There's no
Yep.
progressive of strength, physique. You will get leaner. I
Yeah.
promise you, you will get leaner if
Yeah.
you're hunting hard for 4 weeks, but you will not necessarily need external stimulation beyond the hunt.
Sure.
Now, if you're going to, like I said, if you're going to be someone that hunts maybe 2 weeks a month for 2 or 3 months, that's going to get a little bit tricky. You're going to have to weave in a couple days, which I would say maybe an upper body day specific and a lower body day specific, and then maybe just a body weight day, 2 to 3 days a week. If you're going to have that 2 weeks out of the month where you're dedicated to hunting while you're gone on those hunts, do an upper body workout, do a lower body workout, and then just do a body weight workout. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
The next weeks, those interval weeks, just resume right back to a little bit more than a deload. You don't have to dip down so far to a deload level, but just a little bit less than a normal training day. That's
Yep.
that's really the only way I think you can progress under those models.
And I think the other way to look at it, to piggyback off the last thing you said, was talking about how much you're hunting. Like, I would even say most people aren't hunting remotely as long as that in a lot of instances, like two weeks a month or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, most people, it's like I get a few weekends in October when the season's open or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a huge thing. So in those scenarios, like, that's even less of a chance that you need to actually think about changing a whole bunch. You know what I mean? Like, you're
Yeah.
not really having to adapt from a ton to go into this situation if all you're doing is doing, you got a 3-day weekend here, and then in 2 weeks you got another 3-day weekend, and then that's it. There's really no need to change anything.
No, I don't
Uh,
think so. And I think
yeah.
anybody that's telling you otherwise is probably trying to sell you something otherwise.
Mhm.
Because the truth of the matter is, it's always going to be meat and potatoes. The
Yeah.
things that are going to get you better are going to be redundant. They're going to be
Yeah.
boring. They're going to be simple. They're not going to be sexy. They're going to be fundamental movement. And I will tell you this as a strength coach, and I know you know this too. Most people that fall into line of trying these higher end, kind of niche exercises, one, are probably the least people in need of those things because,
Yeah.
because either they're still too overweight to really utilize any benefit from that sculpting, and two, they're just trying to isolate a muscle group to the finite point rather than getting the entire muscle group stronger. Like, it's
Mhm.
like, oh, I just want my gastroc bigger, so I'm going to do these, and they've got chicken legs. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
let's
Yeah.
just make the leg stronger, and by
Yeah.
default that will get bigger, more muscular, and then hopefully, if you're eating correctly, leaner. Same thing for the mountain athlete. Like you need to look at yourself as a leg piston machine. You need to be squatting. I think you need to be deadlifting, and you don't need to be deadlifting with your back. You need to be deadlifting like you're leg pressing. When you leg
Yeah.
press, you grab onto those handles and you push the machine away from your body. Same thing for me. When I changed that thought process on the deadlift from, hey, I'm pulling this up, and oftentimes I would hinge too high of legs, too high hip, and hinge position to this is a leg press. I would hold on to the bar just like it was the leg press handles. I would position my chest a little bit higher, and I would try to squat, push, leg press, whatever you want to call it, jump away
Hmm.
from the floor. It corrected my form. It corrected my thinking of my process of form, and it actually gave me a biological or a biomechanical advantage to my movement
Yeah.
by thinking of it differently. So when you're don't run from the deadlift. When you hear me say you need to be deadlifting, don't run from that. Another really cool caveat on deadlifting is if you do it with a trap bar at the end of your set, you can walk with it. And guess what? Leg
Yeah.
piston machine.
Yep.
Adding in some farmer's carries or just some heavy ass carries in your hands. Guess
Yep.
what? I promise you, you're going to have to lift logs. You're going to have to break limbs. You're going to have to do things that don't register when you're just rucking.
Yep.
Get things in your hands, carry heavy stuff, move, get down low, get up high, crawl over things. Like, think about your training. I don't understand how people say that mountain training is boring because literally it's parkour. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if you just want to call it weighted parkour, like it really can be. Like bear crawls
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff can be so beneficial. Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just think people overcomplicate the wheel, and I really do think that the number one thing is just think about your training. How hard did I work today on the mountain? Did I do enough to warrant not working out a little bit? No,
Yeah.
do a workout. Next time, did I kick? I got my ass kicked and it was 100 degrees today. Probably need rest and hydration. Skip the
Yeah.
gym. Like just use, I mean, let's just say fuck the last 20 minutes of my rambling and let's just reduce it down to that.
Yeah.
If you kicked your ass on the mountain that day, don't worry about it. Eat good,
Yeah.
sleep good, and hydrate. If you
Yes.
didn't do very much, if you just glassed, if you didn't find any animals, you went on one stalk, it was 72 degrees, probably go back and give a little effort. Like
Sure.
that's probably as simple as I could have made it. And I'm a retard.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when you said it's basically parkour, I have a story that like highlights that exactly from my elk hunt last year, and this actually ties in before, like earlier, also to earlier conversation we're having. Um, my uncle and I are walking like right below this ridge line, side hilling across, and we come up to this spot where we have to kind of hike down a little
Hmm.
bit in order to keep going across because like basically the ridge line had ended and we had to kind of climb down this little rocky area then to keep coming across. Well, the area that we're starting to climb down, like literally climbing down kind of this little small rock face, it's a bunch of just loose shale rock right below us. And so like we have to literally, I mean, poles are in the ground and we are digging in and like you're up to your calf in this loose like pay dirt with all this rock and stuff, kind of
Yeah.
trying to side here once you get down. And I was like, dude, we got to go super slow because one of us could slip and slide and we could go all the way to the bottom. We have no idea. Well, that's almost exactly what happened to me. Like I'm walking across and I just had one misplaced step
Yeah.
and I have my bow in one hand and I have one pole in another, and I literally slip and look like I'm baseball sliding
Yeah.
down the mountain for I think probably about 100 feet, 120 feet. Right, like I'm literally just sliding down. I'm like, I'm looking down. I'm like, I have no idea if I'm going to stop until I get to the bottom, and it's probably 850 feet to the creek bottom from where we are. Right,
Shit.
and so I finally stop. I catch myself on like I finally found a big rock that I kind of brace my foot on, and I stand up and I turn around and look back up. My uncle's like, dude, are you all right? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. And I look down and the entire like hip outside thigh of my pants had completely shredded off. So literally just like my whole ass cheek is showing on my right side through my pants. Like it ripped through my base layer on the bottom. And I'm like, I've got a couple of scrapes on my elbows. I'm like, I'm fine. All's good. I'm fine.
Yeah.
So from there, there's no way to make it back up to the top because you can't climb up that stuff.
Right.
So it
Right.
kind of, and luckily we're on our way out, but it made our way out way more difficult because now we're like, well, crap. Now we literally have to go all the way to the bottom and walk out through the creek bottom.
Yeah.
And then you get to the bottom and there's all the willows and all the dogwood and all that stuff that you have to kind of fight through. And we're
Yep.
like, we're not doing this. So we literally push through and get to the actual creek
Yep.
that's coming through, the small part of the tributary of the river that was coming through right there. And from where we were all the way back to the main trailhead was like a mile and a half or something
Mhm.
from where we were. So we're kind of close to getting out. But in the creek bottom, in all this stuff, in the river, are these stones that are like, I don't know, the biggest ones are like 10 feet across. And it
Oh yeah.
literally looks like a Mario game of all these giant stones going all the way through. And we're like, look, we're on our way out. We're not looking for animals right now. Like, let's just kind of have some fun as we're on our way out because this whole afternoon's been kind of sucky, right?
Right. Right.
And so the two of us were literally leapfrogging on these stones like the whole way out for a mile and a half, and it kind of became like a game where
Yeah.
we're like, ooh, I'm gonna make it to that one. We're like, dude, you can't make it to that one right there. And like there was a couple of missteps and got wet a couple of times, but I was literally thinking like, this was mountain parkour that we were doing.
Yeah.
And we each had like our 30-pound packs, like giant Evo packs on, and we're like, this is legit. And we got back to the thing and we're like, we are smoked right now, but that
Oh
was
yeah.
fun as hell, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how it was when we were packing out the elk. I mean,
And to round that out, that means I need new pants. So that came at a nice,
oh hell
came at a
yeah.
nice time.
Plug.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, that same thing happened to me with the elk. I mean, you're kind of just same deal. We had gotten the elk the night before. It was a terrible hike out. We had some issues with water and just the timing of things. It got really sketch. And then the next morning we go out, and it's like we're in the worst part of this bowl, and we're kind of in the pitch bottom of the bowl. So we get
Yep.
the elk on, and we're all hiking it out. We did have a good crew, so it was just one trip in, one trip out, and I don't remember exactly, maybe 2.3 miles. Not a brutal hike at all, but it was brutal conditions. And we're just hiking along, and then Rodney started singing, just kind of. And then one of the guys was like, you can't sing, blah, blah, blah. And then the shit talking started, and it was funny how something that sucked so bad started to be fun,
Yeah.
because, and when I look back on that pack out, I think Steve Ranella is the one that Rogan mentioned saying this, but like you have like this high intensity excitement on a roller coaster, but you don't ever
Yeah.
really think about
Yeah.
it again. And then like the worst things in your life become like the things you cherish the most. And that
Yep,
was kind of one of
exactly.
those deals with this pack out, because it just sucked. But I look back on it now and it's like, man, we were laughing and cutting up and talking shit to each other, and you
Yep.
know, watching. I mean, I busted my ass and hit a cactus, and we all laughed about that, and they
Yeah.
talk shit, So I don't know, man. It's funny how that works, but anyway, enough of that.
I was gonna make one more point on the training side of things,
Mm,
because one of the things that as an athlete, like it was so funny to ever see this happen, especially in college when you'd think it wouldn't have happened as often as it did. But like you're training for this thing however long, and it comes to like race day, right? We came to a meet, and some guys on my team,
mm,
like all of a sudden they're like, dude, we got this new like pre-workout we're going to take before our race, get like jacked up, right? Like feel good and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, have you ever taken it before? They're like, no, we just got it yesterday. And I'm like, so why would you take it before a race not knowing how you're going to deal with it? Like, it could be horrible. Like
yeah,
you could start like having a horrible reaction and they'll start puking on the freaking start line. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like, and they're like, oh, well, we'll be fine. It's just, pre-workout, whatever. And one of them was fine. And the other one's like, dude, I felt like garbage that whole time. I'm like, well, no crap, dude. Like you've literally never done this before. And so this idea of like, I train all year a certain way. And then
mm,
the week I'm getting ready for a hunt, I'm going to start doing all this stuff I've never done before. Or like when I
yeah,
get up on the mountain, I'm going to start consuming all these things I've never consumed before, thinking it's going to help me with my energy levels on the mountain, not knowing at all how you're going to react to that different stimulus.
yeah,
Like the week of the thing is never the week to try a new thing,
yeah.
because like you just don't have enough time to realize how you're going to feel doing it.
Well, I'll say to this too. It gets expensive, but those mountain meals, the kind of dehydrated meals, I think it's a good practice that when you're 2 weeks out from your hunt, just start eating one of those every couple days or every day.
Yeah,
You know, start letting your body adjust to that, because I'm telling you, I've been in camps with guys that went from the switch. They've got high sodium and they got a lot of stuff. You know, they're good meals, but they got a shitload of sodium.
yeah,
And guys just, I mean, they're shitting through screen doors. You know what I mean? Like it just
yeah,
destroys them.
yeah,
And I've never had that problem, but I've always kind of done that process is, you know, at least a few days before I go, just to try them honestly, like which ones do I want? And that's what I do
yeah.
is I'll usually go buy 2 or 3, try them. If I like them, I'll get more for the hunt. If I don't, I'll get something else. But I do that for a couple weeks before I go on the hunt. And, you know, I don't think one meal a day like that's going to hurt you when it starts eating like 2 or 3 of them, where
Right,
it starts adding up pretty
right.
quick. So I can just kind of condition my body that way. And same thing for water. Like when I know that I'm only going to be relying on water, that's, you know, I'm a Coke Zero whore. Like I love those things. So
Yeah,
I kind of switch my mindset to if I can only have water out here, that's all I'm going to start drinking. So, you know, I'll put electrolytes, Protect, or whatever in them. But it's basically
there was.
I just get ready early. You know.
Yeah, exactly. And it reminds me there was this cool story I'd heard, and I think it was about Forrest Griffin, and it
Okay.
was when he was at his at his peak, when he was at the top. He would, as it started to get closer to fight week, and his camp started, as it getting more dialed and stuff. As they get closer, he would start doing his training at like 11 p.m. at night,
Oh yeah.
because he's like, this is I'm the main event on this card. I'm not fighting until 10, 15 at the earliest, assuming every fight before me gets first round finishes.
Right.
And so just that small thing of like, you have to do these things how you're going to be doing them on the mountain, not like waiting. Like if he trained at 6 a.m. every morning for 12 weeks and then he doesn't fight until 11 p.m. the night of fight week, like that would absolutely jack somebody up just from a
Yeah.
preparedness standpoint. And
Hmm.
so it's things like that where you're like, the week of is never the time to test things.
No. No, and I think that's one of the things that people do too is they, you know, not to get back on the bow and the archery stuff too much, but whether it's your rifle, maybe lesser degree your rifle, because once you zero a rifle, you're pretty good. But
Yep.
you know, people wait until a week before season to get new strings and get a new peep and get new arrows and get all this stuff, and it's like hunting season starts in September or
Yep.
late August every year. You know,
Yep.
um, and I don't know. Maybe I have no place saying maybe people are saving money or whatever, like saving up. But again, like if you have a bow now, you don't have to buy one next year. Like you can just get new arrows. So
Yeah.
I just think people need to have a little bit. And this is a perfect segue to kind of close out the show about shoot to eat.
Yeah.
You know, I think people have a very strong overreach of what they believe their capabilities are based on things they can do once out of 10 times. You know
Mm.
what I mean? Like, oh, I can hit that 40. You know, I can hit
Yeah.
that 40. Well, it's hit or miss for me. Like the way that I would
Right.
grade things. And the shoot to eat challenge, I thought, man, for something where there was like really no prize on the line other than, you know, you got some stuff from Sornex, you got the clean eats. But I mean, I'm talking like in the scope of the internet where everybody's promising you like $50,000 and a,
Right.
a elk hunt of a lifetime. You know, it was just really incentive based around effort. You know, that was the coolest
Yeah.
part. And a lot of people got involved. A lot of people shot all 15 days. A lot of people didn't get that opportunity, but they shot to their ability. And you know, that's to me, that's the win. Like people giving the effort that they can, trying to squeeze out a little bit more than they've given before. But I hope that people took the feedback that they got from their arrow flight, from their shooting capability, and like I talked about it before, really question themselves before they go into the woods. Like you still have time, you know, and
Yeah.
nobody's putting a gun to your head saying, unless you have a very specific tag with a very specific date range, nobody's saying you have to go into the woods opening day. Like, I know
Right.
everybody wants to, but let's ask a different equation here. If you watched your child drive a car, whatever grade level your shooting was, would you want to turn them loose into traffic? Right? You're potentially putting a projectile towards an animal, recognizing that you're not necessarily capable of the accuracy that maybe you should be or maybe you thought you
Mhm.
were. It's okay. Everybody
Right.
has those days, has those whatevers. They need adjustments. They maybe need something done. I just think I think it's really dangerous right now where the internet has gotten so focused on killing and not the art of hunting that people are over anxious to get into the woods. They're over anxious to draw back. They're making shots too quickly, imagining themselves in the photo before the animal's even been hit by the arrow. You know,
Yep.
that's a totally different soapbox and doesn't need to be equated to shoot to eat. But that was
Yeah.
just me saying, take care of yourself. Look at your arrow flight. Look at what you're shooting. Ask yourself honestly, how am I shooting? The shoot to eat thing was 100% one of the most positive things I've been involved with since I've been at Sornex.
Yep.
I was introduced to so many new archers, so many new people that I didn't even know had bows. The trad community came out strong, represent.
Yeah, they did. That was
Um,
cool.
I was so thankful to see some of those names and faces like we talked about before. Um, just because they have helped me. Like, I've watched their YouTube videos obsessively trying to understand this stuff, and to see them kind of pick it up and get involved with it was really, really awesome. And that's that's the coolest part to me, is finding new people to bring into that fold and really reemphasizing that on the outdoor side, we are a community too, not just an event or not just a band of a few people. Like, we are a true community. And when we do something like that and you see the community come together, like, that just inspires me and tells me that we have something really special here that we can build up into something more special. So I'm excited for it. I know when I talked to Bert a couple times throughout, he was really pleased with the way things were going. And to his credit, he's been doing it. I think I know at least 2 years, maybe 3 years, just kind of
Yeah, I
on his
remember him
own.
doing it last year.
So he he was just doing it for his own accountability, and it just kind of grew. That's what Sorinex always does. It starts very, very small and grows outward. So I thought this was great. We got some more stuff coming on that front too, if people are interested. I know people ask about the stickers and whatnot. Um, we've definitely got some different kind of, I'll put quote unquote games slash ideas involved coming up. So
Nice.
yeah, but such a good thing, and man, it shows me there's a lot of people with a lot of talent. You know what I mean? Like, just hidden talents, really. Like, you just look
Yep.
at their lives and never know it, and then out of the woodworks, here they come and they're shooting to eat. It's kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Right.
So I don't know. I if anybody's listening to this that participated, just thank you. It couldn't have gone better, from my opinion. You never know what you're going to get when you do something like that, and I think we blew it out of
That
the
was
water.
fun.
Yeah, it was
Yeah, it
great.
was fun. Right
So
on, man. Well, we'll wrap it up. And as far as as far as a lot of the Born Primitive stuff, I'll say make sure you sign up for our newsletter
yeah,
because there'll be some stuff that we share via the newsletter coming up as far as a lot of that stuff is going. So if you guys want updates on that and then all the other stuff that's coming up here in the next little while, also go. It's on the Instagram page link, and it's also in the show notes below if you're listening on the pod. So that'll do it for today, y'all.
appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.